Welcome to The Power of Now What, a podcast on overcoming the various challenges and problems that one encounters when on the spiritual path, when on a spiritual journey, when engaged in a practice or discipline such as meditation, and even post-awakening and post-enlightenment. This is episode 17 on the subject of motivation. What's the point of doing anything? I'd like to begin by speaking to the conventional science of motivation, a subject I have a lot of experience with and done a lot of studying in, both for my professional work as a personal trainer, and I've done a little bit of motivational speaking, and more so for my personal life. I lost a lot of weight, 47 kilos. I went from type 2 obese to being a normal BMI. I recovered from alcoholism. I used to be severely addicted for 10 years and then became completely sober. I completely changed my career and became a fitness instructor and a personal trainer to support these goals that I had. And I went a very long way to fixing my mental health as well, my anxiety, my depression. I began to engage with all of the practices and disciplines that can help with that as well. And motivation and motivational principles and motivational techniques have been a huge, huge part of that. So I'd like to begin by speaking to the conventional science of motivation. And perhaps you have found this podcast today because you are looking for some motivation. You're wondering why you struggle with motivation, why you feel motivated to achieve something for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden it wanes and disappears. Very common problem, and I can speak to why that happens and how to overcome this cycle. I'd then like to speak to the specific challenges that spiritual awakening presents in relation to motivation. Because as we become more peaceful, as we find the present moment and come to the recognition that you are always at peace, you are always happy, because you are the infinite universal consciousness that is witnessing your thoughts and feelings, witnessing your body, mind, witnessing your life play out. And so as we get deeper and deeper into meditation and spiritual practice, we may find that the motivation to achieve our life goals begins to fade. I would like to speak to that very specific phenomena. Is it a problem at all? Is there actually an issue here? And if there is an issue, how do we overcome it? I'd also like to speak to, is it possible to be motivated to achieve spiritual goals? Is that a thing? Can that be done? Is there a way of building enthusiasm and motivation to achieve spiritual goals? Can that be done? Can motivational principles be applied to spiritual practice? That's a question I'd like to answer. And finally, give my solutions to all of these problems. So let's begin here by taking a look at conventional motivation and the principles, the techniques, the mindset and the understanding that one needs to adopt in order to achieve certain goals and in order really to turn your life around. I'm going to begin by reading out a poem by Burton Braley called The Will to Win. If you want a thing bad enough to go out and fight for it, work day and night for it, give up your time and your peace and your sleep for it. If only desire of it makes you quite mad enough never to tire of it, makes you hold all other things tawdry and cheap for it. If life seems all empty and useless without it, and all that you scheme and you dream is about it, if gladly you'll sweat for it, fret for it, plan for it, lose all your terror of God or man for it, if you'll simply go after that thing that you want with all your capacity, strength and sagacity, faith, hope and confidence, stern pertinacity, if neither cold poverty, famished and gaunt, nor sickness nor pain of body or brain can turn you away from the thing that you want. If dogged and grim you besiege and beset it, you'll get it. The Will to Win by Burton Braley. Now, that mentality, that mindset is motivation in a nutshell, and many motivational speakers adopt this mentality, and they often quote that particular poem as well. It's quite a famous one. And that mentality and mindset is essentially the mindset that I needed to adopt in order to save my own life, really. I was pretty much at death's door with my addiction, with my obesity, with my mental health. I was in an absolutely terrible state. And one of the key factors in turning my life around was coming across a lot of motivational material. So if you have found this podcast today because you're looking for some tips and some pointers on conventional motivation and trying to understand the mindset needed in order to turn your life around, firstly, you can check out my YouTube channel, Corin Bryant. I've got tons of resources on there about what happened with me in my particular story. That's not what this podcast is about necessarily. I'd like to speak more to the problems that spirituality presents in relationship to uh, motivation and how to overcome this challenge and problem. But if you're after more conventional motivation, you're after more conventional getting fired up to achieve your goals, go check out my YouTube channel, Corin Bryant. However, having said that, there are far, far better motivational speakers than me, and the ones that I found to be the most helpful, the most engaging, and the most practical in the application of mindset in terms of sorting my life out, turning things around permanently, fully and completely, you want to be looking at the speakers Eric Thomas. Okay, he's absolutely crucial. Eric Thomas, sometimes called the hip hop preacher. You want to be looking at C.T. Fletcher. He lived it. He really lived it. You want to be looking at Les Brown. Absolutely, you need to be looking at Les Brown. These speakers, these people facilitated the change that the change of mind, the change of attitude, the change of heart needed in order for me to change my life. Everybody wants to know, what diet did you do? What workout did you do? What method of recovery from alcohol? Or like what did you do? Everybody wants to know the practical stuff. Everybody wants to know the sort of hard data of things. But if I'm being truly honest about it, it was a shift in my attitude. That is the main, the crucial key that needed to turn in the door in order to facilitate the transformation. Everything else happened after that. Once you've changed your attitude, you will find a way. So there's this classic quote in motivation that goes, if you want something bad enough, you will find a way. If you don't want it badly enough, you will find an excuse. And that's exactly it. So once I wanted to transform my life badly enough, I found a way to make it happen. And that's when you start to learn about everything that you need to learn in order to turn your life around. So it's the attitude, it's the shift in mindset, it's the shift in mentality that is needed in order to change your life. And all of the practical stuff comes later. Very useful things to know. And you will need to know them. Things like your diet, things like your techniques to recover from mental health, the techniques needed to progress in your professional life, and the things you need to learn in order to progress with your relationships and grow and heal your relationships, and to grow and heal in regards to your mental health as well. But none of that will happen if you're still in an old way of thinking. You have to change your way of thinking, your way of perceiving the world, if you want things to change. Another great quote is, nothing changes if nothing changes. That sounds very patronizing, I know, but I needed to learn this. If I don't change, then nothing's going to change. It sounds so obvious, but there's a lot of people that don't quite get that. Now, when I began to shift and change my mentality and attitude, it was my relationship to pain that actually needed to change. Relationship to pain and effort. And it's this line in Burton Braley's poem here where he says, this is the bit that really hit me. Okay, it hit me right in the heart, it hit me right in the gut. That goes, if neither cold poverty, famished and gaunt, nor sickness nor pain of body or brain can turn you away from the thing that you want. Now, that was massive for me, and it gives me, I'm feeling goosebumps now even just reading that out. Okay, that shows how much meaning that these words have. I'm feeling this. This makes me want to go out for a run right now. Okay, I can't, unfortunately, because I got this dang back injury, but it gets me fired up to go and do something just seeing that, because that's the mentality that shifted for me. Because in my previous mentality, I was a slave to pain. I I was afraid of feeling pain, and I felt like if something was a lot of effort and if something was painful, then it meant I couldn't do it, and it meant that I had to abandon my goals or find a different goal because the goal that I wanted to achieve was too difficult, it was too painful. But then when I saw, because I mean, it came down to, when achieving my goals, it came down to actually my life's on the line here. This wasn't just like it would be a nice thing to achieve. It wasn't just like a minor thing. I actually needed to save my life. Now, there's no greater motivation than that. No greater motivation than that. If I say, look, I need you to sprint 50 meters, you'd say, well, do I have to? Is there any point? I don't really want to put that effort in, and my knees a bit twingy, and I don't know about sprinting 50 meters. You'd probably say, why bother? If I put a hungry tiger behind you and it starts chasing you, you will sprint that 50 meters in no time. You will clear that 50 meters as fast as you possibly humanly could, and perhaps even superhumanly could, because of the motivation that was pushing you, that was driving you. Was you now had a very powerful motivational force. And so in my case, because I needed to save my life, suddenly the motivational force became very great. And this whole piece, this whole poem by Burton Braley here is about if you want it badly enough. So now I wanted my goal badly enough. I wanted the goal of losing weight, being sober, sorting out my mental health. I wanted these things badly enough because my life was at stake. So reading those lines, if neither cold poverty, famished and gaunt, nor sickness nor pain of body or brain can turn you away from the thing that you want. That was the shift in mentality. I want this badly enough, therefore I am willing to suffer for it. And this is crucial. If you want something in life, you have to be willing to suffer for it. There's no way around it, unfortunately. There's no easy way. There's no quick fixes. There's no secret technique to anything. You have to want it badly enough in order to make sacrifices, to, as he says, to give up your time, your peace, your sleep. You're going to have to. If you want it badly enough, you will find a way to make it happen. So this mentality helped push me through those runs where I just didn't want to get up and go for a run. I was still depressed. I was still anxious in the early days of my transformation. I was still withdrawing from alcohol. It was so uncomfortable. And yet I knew that I needed to sort this out. So that mentality got me up, got me out of bed, got me out the front door, and got me out running. It's hard work. It's hard work changing your life. It's hard work turning it around. Worth it? Absolutely. But you have to accept it's going to be tough. But with the right mentality, we begin to turn that effort, that energy, and yes, even that pain into a sort of fire, into a sort of drive. If we change the way that we're looking at pain, if we change the way that we're looking at effort, David Goggins speaks to this. He's another fantastic speaker I would recommend that you go and check out. David Goggins talks about this all the time. It's about using the pain, understanding that the pain is there to help you. It's not there to destroy you. It's not there to put you off of your goals. Pain is a part of the process. And the more you can push yourself through that pain, the stronger you are going to get. It's like the body and the physical effort of physical training is a fantastic analogy for also strengthening your mind, your attitude, your mindset. Because when we go into the gym, we have to lift these weights and it burns the muscles. Okay. It's hard, but that pain is a sign that you're working at the right level. If you're lifting weights and not feeling any burn at all, that's not a sign that you're strong. That's a sign that the weights you're lifting are too light. Okay. We got to understand this. We've got to understand this. If you want to achieve anything in life, anything at all, you have to understand that if you're not feeling any discomfort at all, then it doesn't mean that you're strong. It means that you're not working hard enough, right? If I go into the gym, I'm lifting a 1 kilo weight and I'm like, God, I'm really strong. This is great. What a great workout. No, that's wrong. I need to lift a heavier weight. And if you're the strongest person in the room, you need to find a new room. So, to the conventional science of motivation, it all begins with this change in attitude. And Eric Thomas speaks to this, Les Brown speaks to this, C.T. Fletcher speaks to this. All motivational speakers speak to this. It's about accepting, recognizing, and overcoming pain, discomfort, and effort. And I needed to learn this. I was in my previous mentality, I was very weak and very hedonistic. I was just always trying to move towards pleasure, and I was always just I was afraid of discomfort and I was afraid of pain. But once I got with the mentality of, oh, pain is nothing to be afraid of, all pain is temporary. That's all it is. It's a temporary sensation. And overcoming it and going through it, you will know a happiness that there are very few people, I think, actually get to experience that happiness. It's a peace, it's a sense of confidence, a sense of self respect. When you have overcome something in order to achieve something, there is a deep, deep sense of confidence, self respect, self assuredness, and joy that arises from it. Because, yes, it was raining. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it's dark. Yes, it's 5 a.m. in the morning. Yes, you're hungry. Yes, you're tired, but you still laced up your trainers and you still went out for that run. Now, if you're the sort of person that does that, you have to start building self-respect and confidence. It has to happen. And if you are engaged in a process of trying to sort your life out and you haven't yet picked up physical training, I couldn't recommend it highly enough. I'm actually at the point of saying you can't change your life without becoming physically the fittest version of yourself that you can become. Whatever that version of you is for you, you have to do some physical training. You have to, because that is the crucial way, a very physical, very real, very tangible way that you demonstrate to yourself your own self worth, your own self efficacy, your own power, because you can get yourself up, get yourself out the door, get yourself to the gym, go and lift those weights. That sends a signal to yourself that A, you are strong, and B, you care enough about your health to put the work in to improve your own body and your own mind. Now, to the conventional science of motivation right here, it does come down to the meaning that we attach to the goals. So I'm just going to give a few of my just general tips on conventional motivation, because I know a lot of people are very lacking in motivation, very lacking in energy. If I can just give my top tips from what I've learned professionally and personally, then if you have found this podcast because you're looking for some motivation, then you'll have all of the techniques and tips that I can give you right out of the gate. And then I will be speaking a little more to the specific challenges that spirituality presents as it relates to motivation. So I have three main tips, perhaps not even tips. It's three main shifts in understanding. And knowledge is power. Okay, knowledge is power. So the more we understand, the more we can truly embed and ingrain these principles into our mind. And if we can fully embody these principles and ideas, then the trajectory of your life will automatically shift, because there is a shift in attitude, a shift in understanding, and some of this knowledge, some of these new ideas that you may never have heard before, because we don't hear a lot of motivational messages in our culture. So you may never have heard some of this before, but the more we can ingest these motivational messages, and I would highly recommend you check out these motivational speakers, even just get their talks on in the background. You can find them everywhere, and just have, even if you're not sitting down taking notes, it can be very powerful to just have it on in the background, and it will be going into your subconscious. These are very powerful messages that can make a radical change to the way you perceive yourself, to the way you perceive your life. And my three main ones are to do with the meaning that we attach to goals, something called the locus of control, which is the belief and the understanding of where the control in our life lies. Does it lie externally or does it lie internally? And thirdly, goal setting, and most people setting their goals far too low. So let's begin by taking a look at meaning. Why is meaning important when we are looking at motivation? Let's go back to that example of sprinting 50 meters. If I was to say, go and sprint that 50 meters now, you'd probably say, why? Why bother? It's not really worth the effort. It's not really worth the risk. Why would I sprint that 50 meters? But if I said, sprint that 50 meters in 20 seconds and I'll give you £1,000,000, you'd take off in no time. You'd sprint over that line. You'd give it your absolute 100% best effort. Or if there was a tiger behind you, a hungry tiger that starts chasing you, you'd probably run even quicker than if it was the £1,000,000, right? You would absolutely launch after that 50 meters. Now, the goal is the same, sprint 50 meters. The target is the same, and really the distance is the same, and the effort is the same. All that changes is the meaning that we're placing behind the goal. Now, often in life, we lose motivation to achieve our goals because the meaning simply isn't high enough. You're not motivated to achieve any professional goals at work because the job just doesn't really speak to you. And maybe you're just comfortable. There's no real need to work that hard because you're kind of comfortable where you're at. You've got a clear career trajectory. Everything's kind of going okay, and so you're just not really feeling all that motivated. There's no meaning behind the target. When it comes to, I mean, a very common goal is weight loss or improving your fitness. But if there's no meaning behind it, it just kind of sits on the surface level of your mind as a nice idea. I should get round to losing a couple of pounds. It would be nice. And so you end up joining the gym, but there's no meaning behind it. One of the reasons I think I just had such an intense drive and ferocity in the early days of my transformation is because I knew my life was at stake. My life was on the line. And I was fed up. I was just fed up of the constant pain, of the constant turmoil, the constant suffering that was caused by all of my problems. And that provided the meaning. It gave me something to work towards that was very powerful. So, whenever you're setting goals in your life and if you're wondering why your motivation is waning, take a look at the meaning behind the goal. Because if the meaning isn't high enough, then you are going to lose energy and effort to achieve it. So make a shift. Let's say, I'm just going to give a few examples here of how we can keep the same goal, because we know it's a good goal to have, but we can shift the meaning of it. let's say you do have that weight loss goal, you want to get fit, but the reason that you want to get fit is because you want to look more attractive. And it just doesn't really speak to your heart. It just doesn't really, it's just not, it's not pulling you hard enough to put the effort required in order to actually change. Because let's make no mistake about it, to physically change your body requires an enormous amount of effort and energy. Now, if we change that meaning to be more about your health, and let's say maybe you've got kids, and suddenly you realize you're getting on a bit in age, and you realize you start seeing all of these little documentaries and programs that start talking about heart health and diabetes and things like that. You've started to notice that, well, you've never really been all that fit, you've never really been all that healthy. And you're starting to look at your kids and you're thinking, actually, there's a few things here. One, I need to be a good role model. I need to demonstrate to my children that actually it's good to look after your physical fitness. It's good to look after your physical health. It's good to be engaged and proactive and have energy and vibrancy and have vitality in life. Life energy, that's what vitality means. It's good to have this physical strength and fitness. I want to role model for the kids. And more so than that, I need to be in good health, because if my health deteriorates, I'm not going to be there for the kids. I'm going to be a strain on the children. So now you might work 10 times harder in the gym, because the meaning behind the goal is now coming from your love for your children. Now that is a far more powerful drive to achieve your goal than just being a bit more attractive. Now, the attractiveness stuff, that comes anyway, all right? That just generally happens as you get fitter. It just does. It just happens. But if we've shifted the meaning of the goal, all of a sudden we feel more energy, we feel more vibrancy, you feel more enthusiasm to achieve and to put the necessary work in to achieve that goal. Now, moving into something called locus of control. And this is something in the theory of motivation. I did a lot of research into this. I felt motivated myself, but I needed to understand, how do I motivate other people and what's really going on here? Why do people not stick to their goals? Why do people not even make these goals in the first place? And locus of control is a very key understanding, a key principle if we're looking at why people don't feel motivated. There is external locus of control and there is internal locus of control. The word locus, you never really hear that. It essentially it comes from the same word as location. So we could call it focus. Focus, locus of control, whatever you want to call it. The location of control in your life. It's about understanding, do you feel as though the external world controls your life circumstances, or do you feel like you are in control of your life circumstances? This is the key, because people with an external locus of control, meaning people who feel like the world outside controls their circumstances, will be far less motivated to achieve their goals than people with an internal locus of control. This was crucial. This was crucial in my transformation and in my changing of my life. Because previously I had an external locus of control. I thought the reason I was so out of shape, the reason I was addicted to alcohol, the reason I had poor mental health was entirely because the outside world was being unfair to me. I felt like it was the world out there that was dictating my behaviors. So, it was like, I mean, looking back, it makes me cringe to think of the mindset that I was in. But I'd have like a bad day at work, stressful day at work, and therefore I'd be like, oh, well, now I have to go and drink. And it's not my fault that I have to go and drink. It's the fact I had a bad day. It was those customers that were rude to me. Because they were rude to me, now I have to go and drink. And that's disgusting. That's disgusting behavior, as if that has anything to do with my own behaviors. I don't have to go and destroy my body and my brain just because something in the external world has stressed me out. I shifted this external locus of control to internal and realized, no, I am always in control. I am always in control. And the technique I use to recover from alcoholism, AVRT, addictive voice recognition technique, was crucial in me shifting my understanding of where the power and control in my life comes from. It comes from me. I am in control of my behavior. This is what you need to start understanding if you want to get anywhere in life. If you want to change anything in your life circumstances, you have to turn your locus of control inwards. You are the one in control. You are the one who has the power to change the trajectory of your life. Now, it doesn't work if you go so fully into an internal locus of control that you start to feel like you are responsible for absolutely everything that goes wrong in your life, because there are external circumstances that do influence and shift the circumstances and the situations in your life. Absolutely, there are, but we need a healthy balance between the two, external and internal. What that gives you is something called self-efficacy. We often look, especially in the modern era, you only have to scroll through Instagram to see all of this. People often look at self-worth, self-value, self-confidence, and lots of these things that begin with self, right? Self hyphen something. But very, very rarely do people look at self efficacy. Self efficacy is the level to which you believe that your actions and behaviors can influence the circumstances of your life. And if we're looking to achieve things in the material body mind world, we need to have a self efficacy when it comes to this. So, understanding that your behaviors and actions will shift and change the external circumstances around you. And that is the backdrop, that is the baseline of which you can, that the platform on which you can begin to shift and change your life. Because if you're stuck in an external locus of control, you feel like the world dictates your life circumstances, you got no chance. You're just cast adrift in the world, just bouncing from one thing to the next thing, and you will have no confidence, no self-worth, no self-value anyway. If we start with self-efficacy, all of those things like self-worth, self-value, self-confidence will grow naturally. And that brings me to goal setting. And this is, I would say, this is one of the key reasons people don't get where they want, or why they don't have the circumstances that they would like in life, is because they set their goals far too low. Far too low. And look, I've spent 10 years in the fitness industry here. I work with people every single day and on achieving their goals, on helping them to achieve their goals, and also helping people take their first steps into fitness, helping people take their first steps into the gym for the very first time, writing their very first program. And the first thing that we always start with is, what are your goals? What would you like to achieve? And I have noticed this: 99% of people have such low confidence that they set their goals unbelievably low. Unbelievably low. I can't remember who said this, but they said most people in, this is Les Brown. It's Les Brown who said this. Most people in life fail, not because they set their goals too high and miss, but because they set their goals too low and succeed. And I mean, hidden within that is the reason why people set their goals too low. Because if you have a very low goal to set, then it doesn't take a great deal of effort to achieve it, does it? And the stakes are a lot lower if you don't achieve it. Because if the goal's nice and low and you fail at it, no one's going to notice, right? But and that speaks to, that's how low people's self-confidence really is, and just how low people's self-worth and self-value really is because they they lack the confidence to want better for their life circumstances, and so they set their goals incredibly low. My top tip here is set your goals high. Set your goals unrealistically high. They talk about these SMART targets, and part of SMART targets is setting realistic goals. I say, no, don't set realistic goals. Why? Because according to most people's self-perception, a realistic goal is pathetically low, because that's how low most people's confidence is. They just think, well, I'm no good, I'm rubbish, I won't be able to achieve what I really want from life. So I just want to lose 1 pound. I want to lose 1 pound of weight in a year. And I look at that goal, it's like, no, 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 that's not. When it comes to the science of motivation, we have to have goals that excite us. We have to have goals that ignite a passion within us. And losing 1 pound is not the it's not an exciting goal. It's not, because you won't even notice it if you achieved it. We need to set goals high. Make massive changes. Nothing changes if nothing changes. It's crucial. We have to make huge radical changes. You also see this, people talk about, oh, it's just about making little changes, just about making small changes. No, it's not about making small changes. That doesn't work. We need to set massive goals, take massive action, make massive changes, or your life will not change. Simple. It's as simple as that. We have to set the goals high, 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 because what you consider to be an unrealistic goal to you, to an external observer, they'd say absolutely perfect, absolutely bang on. Because I get people who tentatively, I've told them to set higher goals, and so they come in nervous and they say, well, I've kind of set this, I don't know if it is too high, but I want to lose a stone in 6 weeks. And then they like flinch as if I'm going to like tell them off about it. I'm like, no, that's perfect. A stone in 6 weeks. I'm like, that is great. That is an exciting goal to have. That's an exciting goal to have. Why not? Or in the professional sphere, people might say, well, I hope to maybe earn that promotion in 10 years' time. No, earn it in 1 year. 1 year. Set the goal for this year. Get promoted this year. We have to set the goal high, because even if you don't achieve it, even if you didn't achieve that goal, you will make far more progress in the pursuit of that higher goal than you ever will if you set the goal too low. An old Chinese proverb says, if you aim for the moon, you might hit the ceiling. But if you aim for the ceiling, you'll never get off the ground. I'm going to say that again because I messed it up. If you aim for the moon, you might hit the ceiling. If you aim for the ceiling, you'll never get off the ground. So we have to set those goals high. So my 3 top tips on conventional motivation right there come down to, what's the meaning behind the goal? Just check in with that meaning. Check in with where your locus of control is. Do you believe that you are in control of your life, or do you believe that your life is controlling you? And check in with your goals. You're probably not motivated to achieve your goals because you've set those goals far too low. Now, all of those principles that I had to learn there have facilitated my transformation. And I remember it was one of my friends, actually. I've had a lot of amazing friends along the way who have helped keep me aligned and on track, because I remember when I was beginning to lose some weight, and I'd set my goals kind of low. I was speaking to one of my friends, and he's one of these fitness guys. He's totally into the gym. He's always lifting weights, big bodybuilder sort of guy. And I was asking him for some advice and some tips on training and stuff. And I can't even remember why I said it. It probably was because of a bit of low self-esteem. But I said, I'll never, although I'm training, like I said, I'll never be lean. I'll never actually be one of these, I'll never be one of these shredded guys. And he said, don't you ever say that again. Dare to be great. And that lit a fire in me. He probably will never know just how much that inspired me, because it got me thinking, why not me? That is a powerful one to understand. Why not you? If not you, then who? And if not now, when? Why not you? Why can't you be that person? Why can't you quit that addiction? Be that guy. That was something that stuck in my mind. I was like, why can't I be that dude? Why can't I be the dude who transforms his life? Why can't I be the dude that stops alcohol? Why can't I be the dude that loses weight? Why can't I be that guy? And the answer always came back, you can be that guy. There's no reason why you can't. Every day is a new day. You have choices, you have options. You are in control of your own behavior. Why can't you be that person? Just do it. Just do it. Like it be that person. There's no reason why you can't. And look, I'm not selling you snake oil here. This is all stuff that changed my life. It actually happened. It actually worked. It actually worked. I can attest to the fact that these motivational phrases, that these motivational speeches, these principles and understandings work. They just do, because they work on a very deep level of shifting somebody's perception, somebody's attitude. And if somebody shifts their perception and attitude, their behavior will follow, right? That's just pure science. These aren't just platitudes. These aren't just somebody telling you what you want to hear. How can it be somebody telling you what you want to hear when what they're telling you is you need to wake up at 5 a.m., have a cold shower, and run 5 kilometers? Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. In fact, if you're looking for motivational speakers to listen to, go to the ones who tell you what you need to hear, not the ones who tell you what you want to hear. We've all had enough of that. That's why you've ended up where you're at, in present circumstances. Find the people who will tell you what you need to hear, not the people who tell you what you want to hear. So, they're my top tips and a general overview of the conventional science of motivation. And I could speak at length on this. I speak at length on this on my YouTube channel, in other videos. I might even start a second podcast purely on the conventional science of motivation, because I could talk about this all day. But this is the power of now what, in which we take a look at some of the unique problems and challenges that spirituality actually presents, and some of the shifts and changes that we need to make in our lives when we begin a spiritual path and a spiritual journey. So I'm going to begin speaking to that now. So, a major part of my transformation was transforming my mental health. Previously, I'd suffered severe anxiety to the point where some days I couldn't leave the house. Some days I couldn't make phone calls to gas companies to pay the bill. Some days I couldn't speak to people. My anxiety was so high, and I essentially just shut myself in, curtains drawn, and I would just watch TV. That was the state of my mental health, anxious and depressed. And I needed to figure this out. I needed to figure out this issue with anxiety. Now, the exercise went a very, very long way to helping me with that. It burns out the stress hormones, the catecholamines in the bloodstream, and it helps to settle and soothe and calm the nervous system. So exercise went a very long way. Also, stopping alcohol, it's such a powerful, dangerous drug, alcohol. It's a chemical nervous system depressant, and it creates anxiety and creates depression, which you then drink more in order to alleviate. So that's the horrible cycle that happens there. But once I'd stopped drinking the alcohol, naturally, the depression and anxiety started to clear up too. However, I did become aware that there was still something there. And in the early days of my transformation, I did wonder, because exercise was going such a long way to fix my anxiety, I felt so much better. I did start to wonder, I wonder if it's just going to go away entirely. There are some times when I did feel like I'd cracked it, and it wasn't too. I didn't have to do too much in the internal world and the sort of self reflection, the therapy, and I didn't have to do too much because the exercise felt like it was going such a long way to solving these issues. And yet there was always that constant little shadow of doubt. And then sometimes the stressful life circumstances came back up, or new circumstances happen, which life does. Stressful circumstances will always arise, and it re-triggered a very powerful anxious reaction, a very powerful, what's the word? A very powerful resurgence of all of my previous issues with anxiety and depression, triggered by the difficult circumstances that life sometimes presents. So, a big part of this transformation was I realized, right, I need to get to grips with this, because life circumstances sometimes will be stressful. There's no way around it. And I need to get to grips with this. And so I began CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And the practitioner, was absolutely superb. I owe a lot to cognitive behavioral therapy. It was my first steps into assessing what's going on in my brain, right? What's going on in my mind. And she recommended this book, Finding Peace in a Frantic World, and which contained some meditations. And so I got into meditation, and I became very aware that meditation was actually solving the anxiety. It was changing the patterns of thought on a very deep level, not just cognitive, not just psychological, but actually deep in the body, in my entire being. I could feel something was shifting, because I was beginning to learn principles that were going to rid me of my anxiety forever. Not just masking it, not just going for a run, forget about my problems for a bit, but actually changing my entire being so that anxiety would no longer rise up in response to these stressful circumstances. So I got very deep into meditation. And naturally, deep in meditation, I start to come across the works of Eckhart Tolle. I came across Muji. I came across Rupert Spira, Adyashanti, all of the classics. Obviously, the Buddha, and reading about Buddhism and things like that. And I began this practice of meditation in earnest. I began doing formal meditations every day and feeling the massive benefits of this. So, how's this relevant to motivation? Well, I found it very interesting because I came up against a bit of a dissonance, that happened because I could watch a motivational speech by your boy Eric Thomas, who speaks about we have to get up early in the morning, we have to put 100% effort in to fixing our goals 100% of the time, just constant work, grind, push. And that worked for me massively. It helped me to shift my mindset and change the way that I was perceiving the world and myself. And then I'd go and hit the gym, go to work and stuff, and then I'd put my the meditation videos on, or listen to the guided meditation on my MP3 player, and that was all about just accept what is. There's no need to change anything. There's no need to shift or alter anything. You simply sit and accept what is within this present moment. And I became very aware that these two principles seemed to contradict each other. And yet, both principles were very, very helpful to me. And it presents this problem because it's like, well, which is it then? Which is it? Do I accept my problems? Do I accept my current life circumstances? Or do I put a lot of effort and time and work into changing those life circumstances? It's a dilemma. So that's the specific power of now what problem that I'd like to address today, is that if you find the present moment, you become much more fulfilled and happy. You find this spiritual awakening in which you realize that actually you are infinite universal consciousness. Consciousness is not localized entirely within the body and mind. And you come to this spiritual awakening of realizing that actually this whole body, mind, and world is more like a play, more like a play that's just playing itself out. It's not quite as intense as it previously felt. And you start to realize this sense of inner peace, this sense of happiness. And naturally, if we start to feel a natural sense of peace and happiness, regardless of the circumstances, this is really important to understand here, regardless of the circumstances, you still feel happy and at peace, it stands to reason that sooner or later, the motivation to change your life and to shift your life goals and circumstances, surely that motivation must wane. That motivation must fade because you're no longer seeking peace and happiness in the external world because you have found that peace and happiness within. And one of the barriers to finding true lasting inner peace is this nervousness, this fear. I had this and overcame this nervousness and fear that rises up as you start to find peace and happiness. You think, hang on, if I become peaceful and happy, won't I let my guard down? Won't I stop engaging with the world? Won't I stop trying to achieve my life goals? Won't I stop? In my personal case, it was. I'm trying to lose this weight, and I'm trying to sort of learn a new career, change my career. I'm trying to fix my mental health and everything. And yet, hang on, the more spiritually awake I become, the more I'm not really too interested in that because I'm trying to do all of those things in order to be happy. And yet, I can be happy by just sitting and accepting the present moment. So there's a nervousness that does rise up, a trepidation, an agitation, an apprehension about should I really pursue this spiritual awakening thing? Because I feel like I'm disappearing a little bit. And if I disappear, I'm going to stop trying to achieve my goals. And if I stop trying to achieve my goals, then I'm going to end up in the gutter. I'm just going to end up on the street, right? And won't I feel regret if I get to the end of my life and I didn't achieve those things that I set out to achieve? Won't I regret it later on? All because I found this present moment thing and I became happy too soon? What if I become happy too soon? This shouldn't happen now. This should happen later. Don't you get happy when you're like retired or something like that? Or when you have kids or when you get that job? It's not as easy as just sitting here and being happy, is it? So, this is what happens. And I will begrudgingly admit that there are quite a few well known scientific studies that have reported people who engaged in a program of meditation and people who have found some element of spiritual awakening do report that they feel less motivated to achieve their goals. And I will begrudgingly admit that I found this to be the case too. I was less ferocious in my attempt to achieve my goals the more spiritually awake I became. That did happen. But it's crucial to understand that one of the main things that I needed to fix was my mental health. And so finding presence and finding a spiritual awakening that fixed that mental health was essentially goal achieved. It's the ultimate goal. It's the ultimate goal. There's no goal beyond that. Once you have found lasting inner peace and happiness that cannot be disturbed by the external world, that's it. You've jumped over the moon. That's the gold medal of gold medals. That's the platinum medal. That is the A star, 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 star. It doesn't go beyond that. And nothing has actually been achieved in the external world. All that's been achieved is the understanding and the recognition that was hiding just behind everything the entire time. Most people only ever feel this very occasionally. On those rare moments when you look up at the stars and you just wonder, you feel like you're part of a bigger thing. You feel like you're part of the cosmos and maybe wonder, God, what's life all about? You know, that question that comes up sometimes when people are having a deep conversation when they're all drunk at parties and they're like, what's it all about? what's going on here? What is all of this? And people have that little ponder. Well, when you find spiritual awakening, that's the question has been answered. You figured it out. You figured out what life actually is, the mechanism by which life is working. And so it's the ultimate goal. It's the goalless goal, the goal that's already been achieved. It was achieved before you even arrived on this planet, and it will still be here once you've gone. It's the it's the ultimate, the I don't want to call it an achievement because that sets it out like it's something that can be achieved. It's already achieved. It's a recognition. It's an understanding. It's anyway, so the specific problem here is that where is my motivation supposed to come from? If I really do this, if I really find spiritual awakening, if I truly become fully present, where does my motivation come from? Well, I suppose the first thing that we'd have to consider is, do we just give up on all of our goals completely? Well, actually, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that. Um, it's and also in my experience, it just doesn't really work like that. Like, so what we're going to get into here is the understanding that if your goals and your motivations begin to fade with the fact that you're becoming happy and more peaceful and more present, they're probably not the right goals anyway, because we're conditioned to achieve certain goals in life. And people wonder why. People wonder why they're not motivated to achieve their goals. Why am I not motivated at work? Why am I not motivated to achieve my fitness goals? Why am I not motivated to do this, that, and the other? Because they're not your goals. They're not something that speaks to your heart. They're not something that aligns with your true nature. They're not something that aligns with your true being. We have been conditioned to believe in certain success outcomes of life. Very common ones about owning a house, starting a family, having a career, having this, having that, having the other, achieving something, doing something. These are all goals that the external world suggests to you as you're growing up. And you probably just picked one or two of them because they sounded, well, that seems to make some kind of sense. And all of these adults seem very earnest about all of this. They all seem very serious about all of this. So I'd better pick one or two of these goals. But revisit those goals. And here is where we're getting into the solution to the problem. The problem of, if I'm present, what's my motivation? The problem of, what's the point anymore? If I'm already happy, what's the point? Well, once we're there, once we're at that happiness, reevaluate your goals. Do you really want to achieve that? Are you sure? Are you sure that's the goal that you wanted to achieve? Did you really want to become, I don't know, what's some examples? A stockbroker in London? Was that really what you set out to achieve? Let's revisit. Go back to when you were 12 years old. What was it in your mind then? Did you really want to achieve that career, that relationship, that owning a house, or did you want to be a surf instructor? That's an example I often give. What if you're at your heart you love surfing, and you've always had this background idea, one day I'm going to go and I'm going to be a surf instructor on a beach somewhere. But along the way, you felt like that's not a viable way of living my life. You feel like, I can't actually do that because I don't have the skills, I don't have the qualifications, I don't have the resources, I don't live near a beach, all of those sorts of things. And so you start to try and play it safe and instead go by what culture has suggested and what the society has suggested to you, and said, well, what's the safer option here? And you think, well, if I get a career, then maybe I can earn enough money and then I'll start my surf instructing business. It doesn't work that way. Once you find the present moment, you go, why am I bothering with all of this, my daily life, which I don't enjoy, which only brings me misery, which only brings me suffering, when all I ever really wanted to do was surfing and teach surfing? Now, when you hit that spiritual awakening, this happens all the time. People go and they hand a notice in at work and they go and do what they actually love. Okay. Now, when you're in pursuit of doing something that you actually love, your motivation will be so high, it will stun you. I remember the moment that I decided to work in the fitness industry. The very moment I was walking to the gym, it was a sunny day. I was still fairly out of shape at that time, but I was so looking forward to going to the gym. I couldn't wait. And it was only 6 months previous that I was suffering severe anxiety about going to the gym. I was terrified of going to the gym just 6 months earlier. And on that day, sun was shining, the white fluffy clouds in the sky. I had a day off, and I was just the only thing that I wanted to do that day was go to the gym and just have a good workout. And I was looking forward to go seeing all these gym instructors who are always happy, the receptionists always happy, being around my friends that I'd made at the gym. And I had a few exercises that I'd learned about, been on YouTube, and I'd like looked up Cali Muscle and Elliot Hulse and the Hodge twins, giving a big shout out here, CT Fletcher. And I'd been learning about all of these. Oh, maybe I'll do this bicep curl today. Maybe I'll switch up my tricep workout. Maybe I'll do the skull crusher rather than the pull down. And I was so excited and so passionate. And all of a sudden, the inspiration, why don't I do that as a career, just came up into my mind. Now, previously, I was in turmoil about what am I going to do? What am I going to do in life? Like I've just had this huge breakdown. I've been in crisis. I haven't been able to cope. What am I going to do with my life? And all of a sudden, the inspiration just rose up in my mind. Why not do what you love? Why not do what you love? Now, here's what happened. Here is how the universe aligns for you when you align with your true heart purpose. I went to the gym, and it was on the same day that I was walking there, had the inspiration, why don't I be a gym instructor? I went in, the first thing I did was ask the receptionist, what do I need to do? If I wanted to become an instructor, what do I need to do? She went and got the health and fitness team leader who came out, and he said, oh, what you do is there's this course. It's a 2-month course. It was like £400. You go on that. You get the qualification for that. And he said, when can you start? Right? He said, do this and we'll put you in the gym. And I was like, what? I thought I'd have to go back to university. I thought I needed like a sports science degree or something like that. Turns out it was 2 months doing a few weekend sort of seminars. You have to learn about the anatomy and physiology. You learn about a little bit of exercise science, and then boom, you're done. And I was from the day that I had the inspiration to actually being on the gym floor only took 3 months. From the moment 3 months after having the initial inspiration, everything in the universe aligned to have me in the gym in a gym uniform working as a fitness instructor. Now, to conventional wisdom, that's not really possible. Like, I've just gone from being an obese, alcoholic, severely depressed, shut in at death's door. And it was 6 months later, I was a fitness instructor. Fairly in shape as well, I'll add, and sober, right? Now, what's happened there? What happened? Partly what facilitated that transformation and that change is that in meditation, because my story dropped, my ego dropped, I was aligned with the infinite universal consciousness, and I was no longer identifying myself with my story. My story was alcoholic, obese, depressed. I'm this guy. I'm the party animal guy. I'm the depressed alcoholic guy. Like, that's who I was in the story. But when you find the present moment, you have your spiritual. I wasn't like, I can't say I like became enlightened at that time, but I was going in that direction. The story dropped. And when the story drops, everything becomes possible. Why not? Again, why not you? Why not you? As I was walking to the gym and, oh, I could be a fitness instructor, obviously the story in my mind got in the way. All of the conditioning that said, you can't do this, you'll never do this, you've been an alcoholic for 10 years, you can't do it. Obviously, all that rose up in my mind, but now I had the technique to watch those thoughts and disregard those thoughts. Now I was free to pursue my life purpose. So here's how we begin to resolve the issue of what's my motivation when I find the present moment? Well, it will arrive. Your motivation, your true life's purpose, your true life's goal will arise once you become free of the conditioning and the narrative that's in your mind. A big part of what helped to facilitate my physical transformation is when I just realized actually, I'd like to be fit. I'd like to be physically healthy. That's on a very deep level. That's not something I've been conditioned to think. I've actually been conditioned to think the opposite. I've been conditioned to think your body is just like a silly, like like a silly redundant thing, and the really important thing is like your career and get a mortgage. Like that's what I've been conditioned to think is the most important thing on earth. But my true purpose and what really inspires me is actually no, I enjoy the feeling of being strong physically. I enjoy physical training. I enjoy being physically fit. So now I can just drop the conditioning away. Well, now I'm going to pursue that then. And I have more energy and vitality to achieve those fitness goals than anything that I was conditioned to believe I wanted in the first place. So, as it comes to the solutions to this specific issue, I would say just realign your goals to something that truly speaks to your heart. And the way you assess this, and this takes a little bit of courage, is to look at the goal and think, does that goal excite me? Do I feel passionate about achieving that goal? If you really visualize yourself achieving the goal. What will it feel like on the day you achieve that goal? Does that make you feel excited? Do you feel with joy at the prospect of achieving that goal? Because if you don't, if you don't feel with joy and excitement at the prospect of achieving the goal, you need to disregard that goal. It's ridiculous. There's no point trying to achieve a goal that you don't want to achieve. There is no way you can stay motivated to achieve a goal that you don't want to achieve. You actually have to want to achieve it. Now, understand right here, that this goal it probably will sound absurd to begin with. You the the number of people that laughed at me when I said I'd be a personal trainer, the number of people that doubted me when I said I was going to recover from alcoholism, I was going to stop drinking, the amount of doubt, it will sound absurd to you when you start trying to really go towards that which you are on earth to do. It will seem absurd to other people, and it will seem absurd even to your own mind, because I'd be willing to bet you've been moving in the wrong direction for a very long time. When you finally find that spiritual awakening, you are free to pursue the goal that you actually want to pursue. And so the classic one I use about the surf instructor there, you could be sat in middle, in a city, landlocked city, right in the middle of nowhere, doing a job that could not be further away from a surf instructor. Maybe you work at like a sewage plant or something like that. And one day you stand up and go, I'm going to be a surf instructor. It will sound absurd to you. It will sound absurd to the people around you, but trust your intuition, trust your heart. It won't steer you wrong. And this is where you begin to understand that finding peace and happiness does not sap your motivation. It will sap your motivation to achieve goals that you never wanted to achieve in the first place. because there's no longer an ego structure that's trying to support you being miserable for your entire life in the name of a false sense of security. Instead, you become more aligned with your passion, your excitement, and your joy that will feel kind of childlike. And this is why it takes some courage to actually pursue that. But understand that you can only be motivated to achieve the goal that fills you with joy, that fills you with peace, and ultimately that fills you with love. It has to come from love. It has to. Life has to come from love. All of your words, behaviors, actions, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, opinions, everything, your entire life has to stem from a place of love. That love is the life energy underneath everything. That is the motivating force for why life is even here in the first place. It's and when I say love, I don't mean romantic love. I mean that deep feeling of connectedness, oneness, unity. The true life energy that resides within everyone is love. It is. Anytime you're trying to achieve or do anything in life that is not coming from a place of love, it will go wrong. It will. It always does. If you're doing anything in pursuit of an egoic desire, meaning you're trying to serve the idea that you are a temporary, finite, separate self. Anytime you're trying to selfishly do something, you're trying to do something selfishly for you as an individual person, it won't work. It just won't work. Anytime you're doing anything from a place of anger, anytime you're doing anything from a place of lust, anytime you're doing something from a place of greed, anytime that you're doing something for hatred, anytime that you're acting from a place that is anything other than love, it's not going to work. It might work in the short term, it might be incredibly effective in the short term, but ultimately it will collapse around you. The only motivating force on earth that results in productive, lasting changes to your life is love. That's the only energy, the only force that results in building your house on stone. If you're trying to do something to look good, to look flashy, or you're trying to manipulate people into seeing you a certain way, or you have sort of very shallow desires. You want to make a lot of money, but you don't even really know why. You just think, well, maybe I'll get laid, or maybe I'll have all this nice stuff, but you don't even really know why you want to earn all that money. It's building your house on sand, and when you build your house on sand, it's gonna collapse. But when we move from a place of love, we build our house on stone. Now, it's a lot slower. This is what I'll say. This is something I will say to the more present I became and the more awake and enlightened I became, the less fierce and the less aggressive my motivation was. It became a lot slower. I became much more content to put work into smaller aspects of the goals, and you might put more effort. So, just to give an example, I might put more effort into an individual workout rather than looking at an 8-week plan for achieving my fitness goals. Instead, I'm just going to focus on the workout right in front of me. I'm going to put my love, my care, my attention in to every rep, every step, every second that I'm working out. Whilst I'm working out, that's where my focus and my attention is. I could care less about 8 weeks from now. Why? Because 8 weeks from now doesn't exist. There is no such thing as the future. The future is a myth. It only exists in your mind, right? So I became a lot more focused on the task right in front of me. Now, what do you think happens when you fully put your attention entirely into the task right in front of you, what do you think happens to the quality of the task? Obviously, it's going to improve. You don't have this mind chatter in your mind, oh, I should do this, oh, I should do that, oh, I need to achieve this goal by this certain time, oh, but what about the past? I've got all of this going on, and what about that old injury, and what about blah, 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 blah. Okay? When you're fully present, you're focused on the task at hand. You're not thinking about what's for dinner later. You're thinking about how can I get the most out of this workout? Now, the workout is just one example there. It could be your project at work. You're not so focused on the office politics. You're not so focused on your reputation or how you look. You're not so focused on anything that is, you're not trying to manipulate people into thinking that you're good at your job. Now you actually care about your job. You actually put more work, more time, effort, and energy into the individual tasks at hand. Now, what's going to happen to the quality of your work? It's going to become exponentially better. And who's going to get promoted, right? So you might start to understand a little bit more here about the nature of achieving the goal. It's actually just focus on the performance of the task itself. And if that's coming from a place of love, if it's coming from, if I'm working out because I'm focused on, I want this body to be strong for its own benefit and for the benefit of everybody around me, I'm going to perform a much better workout than if I'm doing it for egoic reasons and I'm constantly taking selfies, I'm constantly whacking it on Instagram. And look, I'm not perfect, okay? I do all of that as well. But at the same time, it's about understanding where it's coming from, the place of love. And this is why finding presence and spiritual awakening is not a problem when it comes to motivation. All that happens is the false goals, the false desires, the false self drops away, and instead you begin to align yourself with your true purpose, your true heart's desire, and you begin moving from a place of love. Now, it can be a bit strange and a bit hard to make some decisions sometimes. Say you get these days when you're just in bliss. You're just happy. You just sit, you're perfectly comfortable. You're absolutely still and serene, and there isn't really much motivating force. There's not much animating force behind you that says, right, let's get up and go to the gym. Let's get up and go and do that. And I will admit, that can be a bit disconcerting, particularly if you've been a very, very energetic person before. So for me, maybe, yeah, I'm using a lot of fitness examples here, but maybe previously you were the sort of person who's very engaged with the mind cognitively on working on your professional life or working on your relationship or things like that. These life goals that people put a lot of effort and work into. And now you're finding this awakening and you're just sort of, well, I'm just kind of happy as I am. So how do you discern then between like, well, I could like push hard and get something productive done today, or I can just sit and be happy. My advice would be just sit and be happy, right? We've done enough rushing around. That never forget just how insane this world has become. And human beings are not supposed to work at the rate that we work. If you've made it to adulthood, I guarantee you've already done more work than any human being was ever meant to do, right? You're not going to hear many motivational speakers talk like that. But it's true. It's true. We've been conditioned to work 24 hours a day, and that's where your self-worth is. We've all got to chip in. We've all got to, everyone's got to be logged in at all times. We've all got to clock in with our card and really grind it out. 5 days a week, 9 to 5. That's what you gotta do. And it's insane. It's utterly insane. The amount of work that we need to do is not nearly as much as the world culture pretends that we do. It really doesn't. If a really good spiritual practice you can do is just go to where there's a lot of people. It could be a town square, city center, wherever there's a lot of people, on the bus when you're commuting to work, whatever it is, take a look around and ask yourself, what's the rush? Everyone seems to be in this massive hurry. Have you ever noticed this? Everyone is rushing around all the time. People can sit down for 10 minutes and they will literally time it. I've only got 10 minutes. I can only chat for 10 minutes. I've got to go do the next thing. Just go and look around. And these are, you even get this, people who are retired, they've got nothing to do. There's nothing left on the list. And yet they're always in a hurry. What's the hurry? What's the rush? And you will find it amusing when you sit there and look around and get into that meditative space, just understanding it's only ever the present moment. There's no future, there's no past. It's only ever now. There is no future. It never arrives. Okay? Never. There's no such thing. It's a myth. It only exists in your mind as prediction, as apprehension, as worry, as planning. And the past doesn't exist either. The past can only exist in your mind as a memory. And memory arrives in the present moment. So there is no future, there is no past. And once you're in that space, that meditative state, take a look around at all the people and ask yourself, what's the rush? What is the hurry? What's all the trouble about? When you start to come up with these answers of like, yeah, but people need to make money. But when you understand human beings invented money, we've invented all of this. We've made all of this up. We made this whole system up. We made the whole thing up. It's a game. It's so obviously a game. And yet people are so good at playing the game, they forgot they're playing a game. Never forget that it's a game. You could call it a game or a play. I like both analogies. But when you come to this understanding that the entire system that has us so fired up, that has us so riled up to the point of getting so stressed out that we become sick with anxiety, we become so sick with stress. The system, the framework of the game is all invented, perpetuated by ourselves, by human beings. We made it all up. And you might fall into despair at this because you think, oh yeah, humans are so rubbish then. No, you're a human, right? There is no they out there. There's no other. You are the system, right? We can't blame society. You are society. Like being frustrated that you're stuck in traffic, okay? You are traffic. You are the traffic that you are stuck in. You are the society that is causing the misery to yourself, right? That might seem like an odd shift to kind of get your head around, but it's crucial. You are humanity. There's no other out there. You are the humanity that is creating the system that causes you stress. So if you step out, the whole thing disappears. It really does. And that's almost impossible to explain logically, but a part of you is going to understand what I'm saying here. If you awaken spiritually, the whole thing disappears because you are humanity. You are humanity. You are the rat race. You are the traffic in which you are stuck. Step out of the car, get out of the car, and walk instead. No more traffic jam. Right? The traffic jam only exists, or you can only be frustrated by the traffic jam if you try to drive. Okay? So if you're walking, there's no traffic. Okay? There's a line of cars. Absolutely, there's a line of cars. There's a line of cars that aren't moving, right? But it's not traffic. It's only traffic if you're in a car trying to get somewhere. If I show you a big brick wall and say, hey, take a look at this big brick wall, It's a nice wall. The sun's shining on it, nice color. That's a nice, big, well-made wall. I go, yeah, awesome. Now try and climb it. You go, now that wall is a barrier. Now the wall is a problem. It wasn't a problem before. It wasn't a problem when I showed you the wall. It was only a problem when somebody asked you to climb it. Okay? So that speaks to understanding the system, understanding the game in which we're playing. We got to choose the barriers that we choose to overcome, and understanding a lot of them. There's no need for a lot of this frustration. Just step out of the whole thing and do what you love. That's where you'll find your motivation. So I do understand there is definitely this strange thing that happens when I'm already happy. So why bother? Why go to the gym? Why do this work? Well, I just find maybe I do hit the gym slightly less when I'm happier. But I put more work in to the workouts I do, and maybe I did need to take a bit more of a break because the world is insane. The world's crazy. It's way too stressed out. It's way too rushed. And people are trying to hit the gym 7 days a week. It doesn't work like that. When you're already happy, you might, yes, yeah, okay, I will admit, you might put less work in, but actually you'll be more productive. Sometimes less is more. If you imagine a potter on a potter's wheel, they don't make the best vase by clamping down as hard as they can on the clay. It takes the right amount of pressure at the right amount of time. That is how you achieve your heart goals in life. You can't really achieve it by going 100% all the time. All that will happen is that you wear yourself out. You're just falling into the same old trap, the same old problem, trying to force the world to change. It can't be forced. It can't be forced. Instead, start at the place of happiness. Start at the place of joy, and you will find that you act in a way that supports that happiness and joy. You may work less, but you will be more productive. And when you're doing things that are more aligned with your heart goals, the quality of your work will improve. It may take some courage. In fact, no, it will take some courage. The ego, the false self, craves security. But often, because of this craving for security, we start constructing a life that we hate. Why do we do that? Because a lot of our structures, a lot of the way that we have socially designed the world is to create this false sense of security. So they come up with contracts and retirement plans and mortgages, and we have all of these pieces of paper with writing on it that are designed to give a false sense of security. There is no security. There isn't any. I'm sorry to shatter that illusion, but it's an illusion and it needs to be shattered because a lot of people are working incredibly hard and living lives that they absolutely hate in the pursuit of security, a security that's never coming. Why is it never coming? Because despite all of your contracts, despite all of your retirement plans, you could lose your job tomorrow. It could happen. Or you could lose your health tomorrow. You might not be able to do that job anymore. Anything could happen that threatens that security. That sounds kind of depressing, right? But no, it's liberating. Liberating. There's all of these pieces of paper, all of these words, all of these numbers. A lot of it is just designed to give a false impression of security. And a lot of people choose to live their lives in ways that are not satisfying, that are not fulfilling, because they believe that if they make that sacrifice, they will gain security. But they're more anxious and stressed out than anyone because they're desperately trying to achieve something that can never, ever be achieved. Life is not secure. It doesn't work like that. That's not the reality of life. Life is raw, intense, and immediate at all times. It's only ever now. We're seeking a security in an imagined future that never arrives. It's the true peace, the true security is in the recognition of the infinite universal consciousness within this present moment. There is your security. You are already secure. You are already safe. You are already happy. You don't need to construct a miserable life believing that the sacrifice you're making by living a miserable life gives you some sort of security. It just doesn't work. If it did work, I'd recommend it. It doesn't. It just doesn't. Things can go wrong in an instant. So a lot of people are living the very thing that they should be the most afraid of. And yet they're afraid of making changes in their life to do something that will make them happier because they don't want to abandon their security. But they're already living the worst case scenario, right? A lot of people, that's where they have these goals set, but all their goals are to achieve their own living nightmare, their own worst case scenario. There's a lot of people who are walking around dead on their own feet, dreading. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine dreading waking up? What? Dreading Monday morning? Can you imagine being so filled with anxiety and stress that you don't want to go into work? How on earth is that a sign of a healthy, productive life? That is worst case scenario. Many people are living their worst case scenario. So, what have you got to lose by jacking that in and instead pursuing a happy life? Wouldn't that make more sense? Wouldn't that be more motivating? Wouldn't we be more uh, wouldn't we be waking up with a bit more energy if we were pursuing a life we knew would make us happy rather than stoically trying to grind out a miserable life in the pursuit of stability? Anyway, so I do understand that some days you're already at peace and you're already happy, and it can feel difficult to get yourself driven and motivated. I'd say just relax. Okay. If you've found happiness, you've achieved something that 99.99% of people on earth cannot achieve. They just can't do it. So if you found it, enjoy it. You owe it to the rest of humanity. You really do. And when the time comes to move and do something and be productive, you will end up doing it from a place of peace. It's a subtle motivation. It's subtle. It's more like you feel more nourished. You don't feel like driven to jump up and go running around. Maybe a bit. But the motivation is a bit more, it's nourishing. It you feel more quietly driven, but powerfully driven. Like a rising tide. It's not rising with massive waves crashing or anything, but just a slowly rising tide. There's no force on earth more powerful than that. That's what the motivation to achieve your heart goals will feel like when you find that awakening. So, as a side note here, is there such thing as spiritual motivation? Can you be motivated to become spiritually awake? In the early days, I would say yes, you can. Like climbing a mountain, you maybe you do need a bit of motivation to kind of stick to it and push, but it just comes to a point where even that kind of starts to fall away because the goal is already achieved. Spirituality and achieving enlightenment and awakening is different to any other goal that you could possibly have. Any other goal you could possibly have. It is different. You have to understand this. When you get into meditation, know that this is going to be unique, a unique experience that is not going to be like anything you've experienced in your life. In your life. Why? Because the goal has already been achieved. No other task on earth works like that. Everything else on earth in life works by there's a goal at the end of a finish line and I need to work towards it. But in meditation, the goal has already been achieved. It's already the present moment. You are already at peace. Meditation is the cessation of the mind, the relinquishing of the ego. It's the dropping away of the false self so that you can align your consciousness with the true self, infinite and universal. So motivation kind of doesn't, it at some point it falls away. The motivation to achieve spiritual goals is like the boat that takes you to the island. Absolutely, the boat is necessary to take you to the island, but once you get to the island, get out of the boat. Get out of the boat and burn the boat. Okay? It's crucial because the seeking, the seeker, the one who seeks peace also has to disappear. It's a beautiful halfway stage to be a seeker, to seek inner peace, but can you see the irony? Can you see the nuanced irony of being somebody who seeks inner peace? What's the hidden implication? If you're seeking something, you must be missing something. Okay, that's the hidden implication of being a spiritual seeker. If you're seeking something, it means you don't have it. So it's a trick of perception. By its own definition, it can't really exist. It's a halfway stage. It's the boat that takes you to the island, but ultimately, there's no boat and there's no island. So it, when it comes to motivation to achieve a spiritual goal, it can be a useful halfway stage, but understand what's happening, because a seeker, by definition, has to be frustrated. Has to be. Otherwise, you wouldn't be seeking. So, constructing a seeker as an identity will ultimately get in the way of your inner peace. Constructing an identity of a spiritual seeker ultimately will get in the way of your inner peace, especially if you start to identify with that seeker too much. There is no seeker. You're already at peace. It's only ever now. You're only ever infinite universal consciousness. Nothing has ever happened. Nothing has ever happened. There's never been a previous moment. There's never been a next moment. All of these things are total fabrications and illusions. Some motivation can be required because it can be difficult, it can be tough, especially in the early days, to find that 10 minutes, 20 minutes to take yourself aside. And you need the classic motivational techniques in order to find that time and be committed and be driven to achieve this thing. And let me just reiterate those main points, actually, of let's take a look at the meaning behind the goal. Why do we want to achieve that enlightenment? Because ultimately, it's the only way to find happiness and peace. Internal and external locus of control. Well, you are the true self. We need to drop away the false self entirely, and infinite universal consciousness means there is no outside world and inside world. Therefore, the locus of control is both inside and outside, and is neither outside or inside. It's all the same thing. And goal setting, we need to set the goal high. Yes, we absolutely do, especially if you're on a spiritual path, especially if you're on a spiritual journey. Never lose sight of the true goal. Let's jump over the moon. Let's really do it. Let's really do it. Let's really find total inner peace, total enlightenment. Don't sell yourself short and live your entire life as a spiritual seeker. Let's end the seeking. End the seeking, end the seeker. Find it now. You've suffered enough. Okay? You've suffered enough. It's enough. It's enough now. You have permission now. Just let it all go. Let everything go. All of it. Even the spiritual seeking. Let it all go. many of these questions and problems that we bring up in The Power of Now What just fall away. It just becomes obvious. Will I lose motivation to achieve life goals? Well, not really. You'll probably have fewer life goals and they'll be more aligned towards your true purpose. And that's it. As simple as that. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. And what's the actual goal you want from your life? Well, it's probably the same thing that most people want. Just be fairly healthy, free of pain, be surrounded by loved ones, to do some work that makes us feel fulfilled and validated and happy, to live in peace. And that's pretty much it. That's it. Simple. It's not complicated. And it never was complicated. So as to the question of if you're already happy, why do anything? Well, everything's just kind of happening anyway. It's all just happening anyway. A lot of it is that we don't really make as many choices as we think we do. Not really. It just, life is unfolding. It's an unfolding. It's a happening. You're not actually in real control over many of your choices anyway. Just allow it to sort of be, and you will find that these answers just arise naturally. You'll feel that natural motivation that rises. I'm going to end with some words that I wrote, similar to the will to win, but I guess this is motivation that is aligned more with those who seek true inner peace, those who are on the spiritual path, those who are on a spiritual journey, those who are engaged in a practice or discipline such as meditation, and even those who are post-awakening and post-enlightenment. It goes. Be not afraid of the darkness, for you are the light that casts shadow. You are afraid only of what you do not know. Be not afraid of the forces of shadow, for presented to you they must be known, and in that knowing light they are dissolved. Their attempt to distract you are the seeds of their own inevitable destruction. Be not afraid to fail, for failure can only exist as proof of your effort, and your efforts alone are the true victory. Each failure is valuable nutrient on which to grow. Be not afraid of your own heart. The deepest movements of your heart are known only to you, and in intimate covenant with God, agree to that which you are willing to suffer for your heart is yours alone to bear. Be not afraid to succeed, for the small corner of the universe you have been granted is yours already, your life a play, the game. Ultimately, when you are finally aligned on the side of light, you will find this game is fair, and all efforts shall be as a victory lap, a parade of honor, a walk to the stage to collect the award. Be only afraid of not trying at all, for it is only those who never try who truly fail. That is Be Not Afraid by me, by Conor Bretton. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I cannot tell you how much it means to see these subscribers going up, to see people watching this podcast. I don't know why some podcasts seem to be getting crazy numbers and others not so much, but hey, it's all the same to me. All right. I just love it. I just love the fact that these words are resonating, even if it's with a few. I honestly, I can't tell you. Ironically, it's very motivating. There is something very motivating about knowing that these words resonate with people. So I cannot thank you enough for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. If you are listening on Spotify, don't forget to go and follow me on YouTube. If you follow me on YouTube, don't forget to go and follow me on Spotify. And I guess that's pretty much everything. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, be well, and stay present.